great folks in law enforcement that are out there. They're doing an incredible job. Allowing those folks to be able to help protect people so that there can be peaceful protests. That allows for peaceful protest, but then actually steps back and pulls out those that are violent agitators. We saw it in Oklahoma City last night where the
violence is planned, organized, and driven by anarchic and left extremist groups, far left extremist groups, using Antifa-like tactics, many of whom travel from outside the state to promote the violence.
That's Attorney General William Barr with some strong words about who's behind the violence in the nationwide protests we're seeing. He says it's being carried out by far-left extremists like Antifa. Hello, I'm John Scott. This is a special edition of the Fox Report. It's the bottom of the hour if you're just joining us. President Trump also weighing in, tweeting, "The United States of America will be designating Antifa as a terrorist organization." Let's bring in Oklahoma Senator James Lankford. He sits on the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee. Senator Lankford, thanks for joining us this evening. What do you think about the president's proposal? Does he have the power, and would it be helpful?
Yeah, it would start the process of being able to look at what Antifa has done in the past, what they plan to do, what they organized to do. Antifa has been well known over the last several years where they're centers of violence. They seem to be there, seem to be instigating violence both online, in person. They come well prepared in these protest events to be able to fight off tear gas, to be able to take the fight to law enforcement. So they have been instigators in this, trying to be able to create more unrest. That has reason to, at a minimum, begin to look at them as a group that is creating unrest and violence, and then to take the next step on that to be able to designate them a terrorist group. Remember, we as Americans have the right constitutionally to peacefully assemble. This is a basic right for us, but any entity that comes in choosing to be able to press this to not peaceably assemble, there's not a basic right for that.
On the other hand, as Antifa has been stoking these riots, you have spent a long time trying to, stoke some sense of racial peace and harmony in this country. Tell us what you've been trying to do and what you think we need right now.
Yeah, very, very similar to what John Lewis is doing right now, where he keeps repeating we need to be constructive, not destructive in this process. For years, I've called on Oklahomans to be able to look at race relations and to be able to engage in unique ways. Ironically enough, today is the 99th anniversary of the worst race massacre in American history. It was in Tulsa, Oklahoma. There are estimates as high as 300 people were killed when a group of white rioters moved into an African-American community in Greenwood, leveled it, destroying thousands of homes and businesses and killing hundreds of people. The community literally has never recovered from that. It's 99 years ago today. So this is not a new thing for us in Oklahoma, nor a new thing for us in America to be able to deal with the issue of race relations. So one of the things that I challenge people on and have challenged people on for years is the most simple of conversations. Everyone talks about we have a national conversation on race. National conversations are not a group of elected political officials sitting around with media cameras. National conversations happen around dinner tables. And so I ask people a very simple question. Has your family ever invited a family of another race to your home for dinner? Not for some pre-planned program, not for some set of questions that you have to ask to, just a simple friendship. Has your family ever invited a family of another race to your home for dinner? Most families I talk to, no matter what race they are, will tell me, no, I have friends of another race. And I'll smile at them and say, that's not what I asked. In your home, your family sitting with their family, literally putting all the issues on the table with all your feet under that same table to just be able to develop friendships and conversation. It is the most basic element that we should be doing and should have done for a very long time and need to continue to do more now.
Many of us who attended church today, or at least listened to services online, heard about the role of faith in all this. You have some thoughts on that, I know.
I do, actually. Actually, my church reopened today. A very small group of people. We had to do reservations online, and there was lots of social distancing on it. We did 4 services today to be able to provide enough space for everyone to be able to be there. But the faith perspective on this should be, and the race issue should be led by people of faith. I believe that people are created in the image of God and they have value and worth. So if you believe every person's created in the image of God and you have value and worth, then you engage with people differently. You take it from the perspective of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who often quoted scripture and who pushed people back on situations like this to say that hate doesn't drive out hate, only love does that. That's a biblical principle of how to be able to take these things on. You know, even the belief that I have that Jesus died on the cross for our sins and forgave us, he met the anger that was there with intense love and has overcome much. And so just this simple perspective of being able to love back and hate, we watched that in the Mother Emanuel Church years ago, and watched people love through the course of hate, and watch a dramatic change that happened in that community. So this is a moment we've got to stand for justice. Justice is a biblical principle. We should address injustice, but destroying things, stealing things, having undercutting of the message doesn't help bring back George Floyd or honor his memory. We need to be able to stand for justice. We need to be able to work for racial reconciliation in a way that both honors his memory and finishes the work that we should have started a long time ago as a nation.
As you were talking about love overcoming hate, we were watching live as part of a strip mall in Chicago was burning. Clearly, there are agitators who are taking advantage of the mayhem to simply loot and burn. I can't say that I believe they are necessarily upset about the death of George Floyd. They just want to cause trouble or maybe help themselves to a free television set. How do you stop that?
Right. Well, this is where you actually get enough police force in. It's where you get the National Guard in. The National Guard's not coming in to be able to squash everything. They're coming in to bring some peace and stability in the situation. Everyone wants peace and stability in their communities, in every community. So having law enforcement there that's honoring all the rules, that's engaging with people, trying to be able to serve and protect, which they do. And we have thousands and thousands of great folks in law enforcement that are out there. They're doing an incredible job. Allowing those folks to be able to help protect people so that there can be peaceful protests. That allows for peaceful protest, but then actually steps back and pulls out those that are violent agitators. We saw it in Oklahoma City last night, where there were agitators that were arrested in a crowd, allow a peaceful protest to occur. Agitators were arrested. Those that were arrested were bringing weapons with them, or bringing equipment to be able to fight off tear gas. We're bringing all kinds of things that it looked very obvious they were coming to the event ready and equipped to be able to take on the police. Those folks are not there to peacefully protest. They're there to be able to cause problems. So the law enforcement, National Guard, and there's enough folks that can be there. They can separate out who are the protesters that are trying to be able to get their message out from those folks that are trying to just destroy and steal.
Yeah. We are watching live in Chicago as a beauty supply store apparently I'm saying it's apparently a beauty supply store, and it is clearly burning. The owner of that store is going to be set back for years, maybe decades. And, you know, the tragedy of what's happening to small businesses around this country as a result of these anarchists, these troublemakers, these hoodlums, is just appalling. Senator James Lankford, Republican of Oklahoma, thanks for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Joining us tonight, former Congressman, former Chairman of the House Oversight Committee, Jason Chaffetz, also a Fox Business contributor and author of the book, The Deep State. Great to have you with us, Jason. Let's start with the development of, the remarks by the Attorney General talking about foreign malign actors and understanding clearly that Antifa, and he also mentioned other groups but did not name them, presumably across a broad political spectrum, but again, not stated as such. Your reaction?
The Attorney General has been very clear and very precise in saying that there are outside actors that are taking advantage of a situation and instigating violence, and those people need to be dealt with. They need to be targeted by the police. They need to be put in jail. They need to be prosecuted. I'm sympathetic to those that want to protest. I think it's the American way. People have a First Amendment right to do it. But those that are going to commit violence, property damage, looting, assault on officers or military personnel, we cannot stand for that ever. That's not acceptable. And so I think the Attorney General's right. I'm glad he's on top of it. And I'm glad that the president designated Antifa the way that he did to give focus across the nation to law enforcement on who we should be looking out for.
And yet we're watching primarily Democratic mayors, Democratic governors, Democratic city councils giving a free pass to apprehended rioters, looters. It's really quite something to see, an ideological alignment amongst those breaking the law and those who are designated to enforce it.
And I hope they pay a big a political price for it. You were talking earlier, Lou, about Eric Garcetti, who's the mayor of Los Angeles, now wanting to cut the budget. It's going to be somehow vogue to just defund or get rid of the police in these. Are you kidding me? And if the LA mayor is serious about doing it, why don't we start with getting rid of his own personal security detail? Because I got to tell you, he's transferred all around Los Angeles, everywhere he goes, with LA police officers there by his side to protect him. If he wants to get rid of the police, show us where your money is, Mayor. Get rid of your own security detail, then tell me if you need the police.
And he could show us where his heart is as well, in solidarity. He could eliminate police protection for Bel Air, for Hollywood, for the wealthier areas in Los Angeles. I suspect he would get a quick response from the citizenry. I'm just guessing. What do you think?
Yeah, I think if they got rid of the police and defunded them there at City Hall and for the city council and all that, I think they probably have a little bit of an attitude adjustment. But the mayor can show us by example. If that's what he believes, then do it to himself first and then see how it goes. Give it maybe 72 hours and see how he's feeling about it.
I think that's about right. A preposterous mayor. I mean, that is just a preposterous person. I just can't even. I cannot figure out a way to understand, to comprehend why the city puts up with him. Let's turn to Ron Johnson. Senator Johnson is really demonstrating real character and commitment to getting to the bottom of Obamagate, and I have to say I do nothing but applaud him. And now he has subpoena power. I would say John Brennan and a few other folks have got some real problems developing very quickly. What do you think?
Very disappointed in Lindsey Graham for delaying yet again an investigation that should have started, quite frankly, about 6 months ago. Hats off, though, to Senator Johnson in being able to get after what is one of the biggest political scandals ever in the history of this country. And I'm glad that Senator Johnson is taking advantage of his chairmanship to do what he should be doing. To do anything else would be malpractice.
And Lindsey Graham, my gosh, it was a love fest. Telling Rod Rosenstein, basically, you know, I'm with you and we don't want to create too much fuss here, so go ahead and do as you will. It was really a stunningly pathetic performance for a guy who had been talking about he was going to be a regular, a real investigator and get to the bottom of the corruption, the political corruption of the FBI, the Justice Department, and their effort to overthrow the President of the United States. It looked like he was having simply a walk in the park, didn't it?
Well, at least they had the hearing. I thought Senator Mike Lee, Senator Hawley, certainly Ted Cruz took it probably the most seriously, asked very pointed questions, and drew testimony on. It's pretty stunning that the political targeting of an opposition campaign, Rod Rosenstein didn't even read the FISA application, and yet he's the last line of defense to make sure everything's in order. He signs off that it's verified, but also testifies that he never read it, and he says he's going to take full accountability. I don't buy it. It's just It's so sad. It's so wrong. But I got, all our chips now are on what Mr. Durham and Attorney General Barr are doing, because I do think there are people that lied to Rod Rosenstein. That's what he testified to. If they lied to Rod Rosenstein, they should be in jail. They should have handcuffs on them, Lou.
Yeah, I think that there are quite a few candidates for that honor, being handcuffed and taken off to jail. And like you, I wouldn't mind watching those perp walks for the politically corrupt in the DOJ and the intelligence agency upper levels. It would be quite something. Yeah. Jason, thanks for being with us. Great to see you. Jason Chaffetz.
All you're going to need is 2 clear glasses, some water, and some food coloring. I was that kid that loved science. I mean, from every aspect of what I did as a young person, I loved science. It was so fun to me. And I think that was because of the people that were around me and mentoring me and exposing me to how fun science could be, because it can be this kind of scary, intimidating subject for students because they see that as the hard class in school. But if they can have a perspective of understanding the relevance of why science is important in their lives, and also how exciting it can make those challenging moments a little bit more, give them some motivation to push through those challenging moments. And that's really what I get to do every day, which is such a fun job, which is why I bring really fun demonstrations to kids. That is really the coolest thing that I can do, and to see the look on their faces when I do that is like the icing on the cake for me. I really enjoyed as a young person that made me love science was getting in the kitchen with my parents. Cooking and baking are all science related. It's all biology and chemistry, and I started to understand that as a young person. So I remembered those moments, not only making memories with my family and like doing family recipes, but also understanding how yeast worked, understanding why different temperatures of the oven did different things to the things that I put in there, why an egg ended up changing in a pan, why that changed form, and understanding the chemistry and biology behind that. But one of the other things that people can, of course, do now is go to these online resources to find science that you can do at home. So things like going to 3m.com/science at home, you can see all of the science videos that we've created, both myself and then the scientists at 3M. And so that's a wonderful way that parents can do those things with their kids. I did a video on diffusion, which is really easy to do. It only needs like 2 different temperatures of water and some food coloring to just test out these really easy scientific principles. And you can be the educator of your parent for your child and give them that opportunity to learn those things. And I am really grateful because I didn't have that kind of access to science education online just because of my age. And so we didn't really have those. We didn't have YouTube when I was growing up. And so it's been a really fun thing for me to be able to do for the young ones, but definitely the kitchen too. No, here's the cool thing about science, and I talk about this often. Once you know how to put together the procedure of the reaction, you have your chemicals, you have your supplies, you've done it before, it's gonna work every time unless something happens to your chemicals, right? We know what's gonna happen. What I was worried about was how was this gonna be received by people? This is a 100-year-old organization that has had long-standing traditions, and I'm going to come in there and basically break that all apart really quickly. Is this even going to be received well? How are people going to view me? I don't know. Am I going to come in last place? I kind of expected to. And I was fully aware of that. So I knew that the science was going to work, but I didn't really think that it was going to work in helping me be successful. But I think the idea of it being so different than anything else that people had done was exactly what made me successful, because it helped me stand out from the group. And more than anything, I think it showed the judges that I wasn't afraid to take a risk. And I think that said a lot about my personality, more than just what my skills were. It's so hard. There's a real divide still with people that would rather see the more traditional Miss America that had been for so long. And then there's people like me who are so thrilled by that idea. And I think that everyone is entitled to their own opinion, but for me, it was exactly what made me want to come and compete in the Miss America organization. You know, we're so used to the normalcy of seeing women's bodies and seeing women kind of, you know, in swimsuits on ads, and that's used to market. And we very rarely in our media see women who are put forward because of what they can offer with their intelligence and their experience. And that is what frustrates me in our world. And so for me to be able to come out here and be like, hey, you know what, I can be a Miss America and not have to show all of my body or show X, Y, or Z. And I think that everyone has the right to be able to do whatever feels comfortable for them. But it gave me, as someone, you know, I fought body image issues throughout my life. I've struggled with mental health disorders. I've struggled with eating disorders. And so for me, it wouldn't have been healthy to put that kind of pressure on myself. And it gave me the opportunity to solely focus on what I could offer with my education and my experience and my public speaking and what I could bring to the organization independent of what I looked like. And that was really freeing for me. I think that it's a huge movement forward. Our organization has really, since the 1930s, been based upon scholarship. So I'm winning a huge amount of scholarship money. Miss America alone wins $50,000 of scholarship money and a salary to pay for her year. So we've always been based upon scholarship and what we could offer to our communities. And I think a lot of that was overshadowed by things like the swimsuit competition, which kind of took the focus away from what had always been there. So I'm really proud to be part of the new wave of Miss America. It's what brought me there, and I'm proud to represent it every single day. So it's a really cool opportunity. So I think it was in 1938, so Miss Montana came with a horse and rode a horse on stage. And that was the last year that they allowed, or I guess the year after they made a rule that you could not have live animals as a part of your talent presentation. Her horse fell into the orchestra pit because they didn't have like pre-recorded music at that point. Everything was played at an orchestra level. And so her horse fell off the stage into the orchestra pit. So when people think that my talent is really crazy, I remind them of Miss Montana, who rode her horse on stage and fell into the orchestra pit. So that was a really interesting piece of Miss America history that I had never known about before I got into this. And that was really cool. I think there's also a woman that packed a suitcase as her talent as well. Especially back in the early days, the talents were a little bit more unique than what they ended up being in the last maybe 20, 30, 40 years. And so hopefully I can break that open. And you just can't bring your horse on stage still. You also can't use fire, I asked.